This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association. Your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark Magnuson.
Hello and welcome to Ag Matters PM. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. We're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, it is the latest Iowa Ag News headlines, and then I will be joined by Dan English of Farmers Business Network to hear about a milestone reached by FBN in operating lines financed. It is time now for our closing market summary.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
We're at the end of another trading day here on Wednesday and joined now by Tyler Schau of agmarket.net. Tyler, what happened in the grains here today?
Got a little bit of a positive bounce today on all the grains. Soybeans kind of started off quite a bit lower, but around midday, soybeans started getting a pretty good bounce. Wheat kind of stayed strong all day, kind of lifted corn. General consensus is the Fed Chairman Powell spoke earlier today and basically hinted at the idea that rates are going to stay probably higher. I'm guessing the market's expecting fewer rate cuts now moving forward. That's pressured the dollar a little bit. It's been kind of on a tear here lately, and it's down about 57 points as we speak. So pulling the dollar down, just a lot of money flowing back into commodities. Gold's at an all-time high. The energy is pushing higher. Basically all the crude oil and the product markets are pushing higher. So I think some of that is just spilling into the general commodity complex, and maybe there's a little bit more of a feeling that inflation's going to kind of rear its head again.
Tyler, whenever anything happens with China and the ag world, it seems like it makes headlines. And here we've heard some commentary coming from China about their import situation with corn. What exactly are they saying right now?
Well, we've heard some rumors that maybe they're going to cancel some imports from Ukraine. That might not be the best for the overall corn market when China goes and starts canceling the cheapest corn in the world. Now, the theory is they're going to cancel those imports to try to boost domestic prices for their producers. So we'll just have to see how that shakes out. At the end of the day, that doesn't really change world supply and demand anymore. They're trying to prop up the price of their own, and that will, anytime a government tries to come in and impede a market always finds a way around that.
Tyler, we haven't talked since all of the reports that were released last week. Obviously, that corn number, the acreage number, was the big news in the prospective plantings report. But what else were your big takeaways from the tail end of last week and kind of what's powered the ag marketplace this week?
Well, one of the things that we kind of extracted from that came more from the quarterly stocks report, and that there was about an 80 million bushel miss on quarterly stocks, what we were expecting versus what we got. Wouldn't be surprised when we get the WASDE report next week that the USDA doesn't bump up ethanol grind a little bit, possibly even exports to account for that 80 million bushels that weren't in the stocks that we thought were going to be. So, when you do that and you plug that into the balance sheet, all of a sudden that ending stock number starts to get closer to 2 billion, not further away or higher. So that's maybe a decent sign for corn. Then we got the EIA report today, and ethanol production remains strong in a time where we typically see production kind of wane a little bit here. Typically, we kind of see a drop into April and before it picks back up in late May and June, and kind of a counter-seasonal increase in production in ethanol. Stocks are building, but gasoline demand is high as well. So that's a good thing for the corn market.
Let's flip over to the other side of the ag marketplace in the livestock complex. Was it another tough day for cattle today, Tyler?
Yeah, cattle struggled. At one point, we're down about $4 or $5 in the feeder market, a couple bucks in the fat market. They came off of those lows, going to settle, $2.5 down in feeders, and anywhere from 87 to 42 cents down in fats. I've had a lot of customers call and ask, when's the bottom going to be in? How bad is this thing going to get? And the bottom line is we don't know. Every day is another day we're negative news could come out. I get it. Cattle don't get that sick. In fact, most reports say cattle are fine within a week. The one human that so far contracted that we know of that was an employee of that dairy basically had some minor eye issues. I shouldn't say minor. I don't know exactly what he had going on, but it doesn't seem like it's anything major. But at the end of the day, every time a news story hits, these algorithm computers are going to trade it. And they're probably going to push it to the sell side. And you've got to remind yourself that managed money came into this story long, about 10, 11, 12,000 contracts, feeder cattle, really long the fat cattle market. So the question we're asking is, what type of news is it going to take to keep them from dumping those long positions? And that I don't have the answer for.
And the good and the bad news, I guess, in the ag marketplace, when one commodity is moving to the downside, it seems like another is typically moving up because of it. And that seems to be the case right now with the hogs. What's happening with the hog market?
Well, hogs, really the hogs and pigs report came out a couple weeks ago was slightly negative, and they've kind of continued pushing higher. And I would say it's a function of, as the speculator looks at this market, probably sees the fat cattle market a little bit overvalued with the news that's going on. So they're coming in and selling that, probably buying hogs as kind of a spread trade. And then, the general market's thoughts are, if there is a problem there and the consumer does switch from buying beef, they're likely going to start buying more pork. And so just piling into that futures market to get ahead of it.
Tyler Schau of agmarket.net, our guest here today. Tyler, what's the best way for our viewers to get in touch for more marketing information?
Look us up online. Our name's the address, agmarket.net. There's a contact page. You can look up, find a broker in your area. We'd be happy to help out.
Thanks so much for the analysis here today. We appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week.
You bet. Take care, guys.
Thank you to Tyler Schau of agmarket.net for our closing market summary. Let's turn now to the closing numbers, which can be found under the Markets tab on our website at iowaagnet.com.
May corn closes up 5 1/4 at 431 3/4. May soybeans up 8 1/4 at 1182 1/4. May soybean meal up $1.70 at 330 even. May soybean oil up 25 cents at 48.85. Chicago wheat up 10 3/4 at 556 even. Minneapolis wheat up 12 even at 639 1/2. Kansas City hard red wheat up 17 1/4 at 580 1/2. May oats down 8 1/2 at 344 1/4. On the Merc, April live cattle down 85 cents at 180.92. April feeder cattle down $2.55 at 240.95. April lean hogs up $1.42 at 87.97. April pork cutout up 82 cents at 97.80, and Class 3 milk down 3 pennies at 15.44.
That is our ag market coverage for today. It's time now to hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soybean Checkoff. Up next, it is the latest Iowa Ag News headlines.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
You're watching Ag Matters PM, and it is time now for the latest Iowa Ag News headlines. Beef and pork exports of $18.1 billion in 2023 had a significant impact on the corn and soybean industries. An independent study, which was released by the U.S. Meat Export Federation, quantified the returns that beef and pork exports brought to corn and soybean producers nationally and on a state-by-state level for leading corn and soybean producing states. Nationally, U.S. pork and beef exports contributed to an estimated total economic impact of 14.6% per bushel to the value of corn and 13.9% per bushel to soybeans in 2023. The study shows that despite the headwinds facing the red meat industry in 2023, exports contributed substantially to the value of U.S. corn and soybeans. Beef and pork exports accounted for 512.7 million bushels of U.S. corn usage, equating to a market value of $3.05 billion. Pork exports accounted for 96.8 million bushels of U.S. soybean usage, which equates to a market value of $1.36 billion. And Farmers Business Network recently surpassed a big milestone in terms of operating lines financed. Dan English is the general manager of FBN Finance.
So we just crossed over $1 billion in credit extended for operating loans. This is, obviously a fun milestone to hit when we were starting out and sharing projections with potential partners. Something that certainly felt a little crazy to think that we would ever get to this level. But in terms of the impact on farmers, we've talked to, have had now, literally thousands of farmers be our customers for this. And so being able to give them another option in the market, allowing them to have a more competitive offering, giving them something that they can get an instant approval on, and have some certainty around financing for their operation has all been great.
English says the $1 billion figure shows a level of trust and confidence between farmers and FBN.
Yeah, absolutely. When we talked to farmers as we were, really preparing to kind of launch this business at scale, roughly 5 years ago now, when we talked about who do they trust, who do they go to for advice, consistently, whoever was providing them financing was at near the top of that list. And so the ability to talk with them, to really be a partner with them for their operations, we've had some, huge swings in the price of grain over the last couple of years since we've launched this. And so being able to help them through the ups and downs and help them maximize the value for their farm has been very rewarding.
He says growers also feel a level of stability when financing operating lines through FBN.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Farmers are typically looking for a long-term partner here. They're not just thinking about the next year, but they're thinking about, the next 20, 30, 40 crops that they're going to have. And so we want to be there to work with them through that whole process. The big advantage of working with someone like us is significantly easier to start up that relationship. We can have someone come in and apply and get their approval in 15 minutes or less. And that's a great way to start off a very long relationship.
English says that Farmers Business Network offers benefits for farmers who choose to finance with the network.
The first thing is we have competitive rates here at FBN. That's since we've started, really on the input side of the business, making sure that we're offering something that provides real value to the farmers. And on the financial side, that's really going to be having a competitive rate that kind of meets or beats whatever they're seeing in the local market. The second piece is just the ease of the process. If traditionally a lot of farmers have worked, with the same bank or farm credit system for a number of years, they may not have gone out to see another quote. They may not know what else is out there. And so, as I mentioned, you can get an approval in 15 minutes and have a price quote to go back and talk to your existing banker or your existing farm credit loan officer and say, hey, can you meet this rate? Can you meet these terms, et cetera? And so the combination of those two, just being able to have a very quick process and a very competitive rate has let us hit this $1 billion mark.
In addition, FBN also has regenerative ag operating lines available.
This is one of the kind of most exciting products that we've had in the market here. We launched it a couple years ago. It was our fastest program to fill up. It just took a couple weeks to fill kind of the first $25 million pilot that we did with that program. And then we did another $50 million last year. And this year we were approved for a grant through the USDA to provide funding for up to another $1 billion worth of loans over the next few years. And so for farmers who are, engaged in some type of regenerative practice, so whether that's cover cropping, testing their nitrogen, making sure that they're applying the right amount of nitrogen to get the maximum efficiency, doing no-till or low-till in certain areas, et cetera, can all qualify for them. And so that's a 0.5% discount off their operating line. And so this applies to farmers who've been doing these practices for 10, 20, 30 years, as well as farmers who are completely new to some of these practices. And so it's a great way to lower your rate in this time when all farmers are looking to save on expenses, including their interest costs, and a great way to reward farmers for doing something that will help make their operation more sustainable. And that's, as we've considered sustainability programs here at FBN, lots of pros and cons to kind of different methods, and we really leave that up to the farmer. But if there's going to be a premium for their grain, we think they should get some of that benefit, and this is one way to do that.
Thank you once again to Dan English, the General Manager of the Finance Department at Farmers Business Network. And that brings us to the end of today's show. We thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. You can follow us on social media at Facebook, TikTok, X, and LinkedIn. You can also follow along with our video content on YouTube. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe. Click on the notification icon as well. That will let you know whenever we have any new videos available for you. Also, don't forget our free 3 times daily market podcast, which can be found on Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Dustin Huffman, Riley Smith, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.